Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome folks, today the Hungry Gamer is back with another game review, and today we're talking about Familiar Tales, designed by Jerry Hawthorne and from Plaid Hat Games. Now before I go any further, please make sure you turn your Klingon subtitles, because if in the limited rules overview that I do give I make any mistakes, that's where you will find the corrections. Additionally, I am going to point out that this is not a legal setup of the game. This is the very first scenario page, so anything you read over here isn't really a spoiler because it's literally the first thing that you're going to read. Though the miniatures that I have out here are not ones that you would be facing early on, and you actually should have all four of the familiars out there, and you would actually have a little token that's the baby of the main character here, though you don't really control her. But I thought the little toddler miniature, well, was cuter, so I put that one out instead. But so what I have here is I have Millie, I have Chalk, one of the familiars, and some random bad guys here as well. And the other thing that you're not going to see is you're not going to see the app, because I have it on my computer and that's where I do it, and it's hard to get a computer on here. But what's important for you to know is that the app is fully narrated with professional voice actors, and also has in it a index that you can kind of click on and go through and search up different rules and whatever. So really, all I'm going to be showing you here is just kind of the core of how the action works in the game. And really what this game is it is the story of four familiars taking care of a baby that will eventually grow up to be a little kid and eventually grows up to be an adult as you play through these three eras of the game over the course of, I guess it's, 16 years or something like that. And the familiars are obviously trying to protect and take care of and guide the child to glory and a good future or whatever it may be. Now, if you are not interested in how this game is played and just want to jump into my final thoughts, then you want to go to the timestamp on the screen right now. For those of us still here, let's talk through how this is going to work. So what we have here in this case is I just have my one familiar out and a couple of bad guys that are out there. And the bad guys would have their own stats, so I clearly should have put some of these guys out there, but I thought these guys just looked a little bit cooler. And so what you're going to do on your turn is you're going to have in your hand 5 cards out of your larger deck that you have, and as you play through the game, you're going to be adding cards and culling cards and so on. And I'm actually just about to finish Era 2, so a lot of these cards won't be available early in the game, but as I said, I'm just kind of showing what's going on here. And the cards will do multiple different things. On the bottom corner, they'll have a movement value, and that's how many spaces you can move. Then on the top, they'll have a special ability that you can use if you play the card. In this case, that means a reroll. In this case, that means I can play it on another familiar's turn. This one is one that might activate certain abilities on items, as is that one there as well. You might also have this right here, which means you heal, or you might have something like this, which means you get to actually draw another card and be able to use that on your turn, but you'll take what's called a fatigue card, which is, as you guessed, not particularly good. So let's just say I use that for some movement, and I might step right here, and you'll see that right here on the board there is this 102 storybook. So I would go to the app, I would type in 102, and it would give me a story, something that's going on. And it might change the conditions of what's out here. It might cause something to spawn. It might give me something that it might give me a test that I'm trying to do, and I'll talk about tests in just a minute, or. And usually when you finish it, you cover up, it can only be activated once. I'll note there's another one over here. And you can kind of keep on moving through. When you are on a space with one of these here, that's a forage space, and you might be able to get, in this case, food, or in this case, wood from one of those spots. And to do that, you're going to check out what the forage number is. In that case, it is a 3. And then I'm going to go back to my cards, and I'm going to look at the forage number. So maybe I decide to play this reckless card. And you know what? I'm worried I'm not going to make it, so I'm going to use that ability and draw another card, which happens to be tweets. And I'll talk about some stuff on tweets in just a minute, so I'll put that to the side. But that means I have a forage score of 1. Well, I don't think that's enough, so I'm also going to add this one here, and I'll have a forage score of 2. And you know what? I'm going to add this one here, and now I have a forage score of 3. So that looks pretty good, but you know what? Instead of using this one here, I'm going to go ahead and use this focus, because this focus has that reroll. So now I have a forage score of 3. I need to get a 3 to find some. So then I would roll the die. In this case, I have +1. It means my value is a 4. I made it. However, I could also get some power, which is something that you track through the game on this thing right here, and you're going to be using power to buy more cards and buy upgrades and so on and so on. I might have gotten a danger, which you plug into the app, because what happens is you get to keep on taking turn after turn after turn as your familiars, and at the end of your turn, you will draw back up to 5 cards, tell the app that you've moved on, it'll tell you who's next. But eventually, as you go through, the danger is going to build up and up and up, and when the danger gets high enough, then all the bad guys will get to activate. Or of course, you might have a -2, a +2, or a -1, again affecting your roll and how well you do. And you're going to do the exact same thing when you're dealing with combat as well. It's going to be run exactly the same way. And I will point out there, had I, say, rolled the danger there, I could have activated this there and done a reroll. And now I got +2, and now I would have succeeded. And the same thing's going to happen when you're doing combat. As I pointed out earlier, bad guys on the page will have their stats, in this case, 5 defense. If I attacked an unsavory, I would be trying to get my melee ability, if I was in the same space as them, up to 5. If it was a ranged attack, I'd be trying to get my agility up to 5. And if I did, they would take a damage and get closer to being defeated. And it's roughly going to work the exact same way when a bad guy attacks. When the app tells you the bad guys attack, they'll move, and they will attack you for whatever their stat is here. In this case, it is a 5. Then, if I decided to play these 3 cards again, I would have a defense of 1, 2, 3. And then I would roll my die. In this case, a -1. I don't like that, so I'll use that reroll. And I got a power, and I have 3, so I block 3 damage, and I would take 2 damage. This is a big difference between the bad guys and the heroes. The bad guys, for the most part, if you hurt them, they only take 1 point of damage, though there are different status effects that might hurt them more. But you're going to take the difference between your defense and whatever it is that they hit you for. Now, the only other thing that I want to point out is I drew that card Tweets earlier. And a lot of your cards are also going to have on it a special ability. So this one here is I could send my little bird as chalk right off my shoulder around the board, and he could pick up something for me. Any of the things that are out there, for example, all the way over here, there's a mushroom. I could send Tweets out just to grab that for me. And various cards have various different abilities that will make sense as you play through the game. And you're going to be moving through the board and trying to get yourself off of the board. Usually it's on one of these spots here, but it's going to tell you over here on the board exactly what the specific win condition or finish condition is. Now, as you're going through the game, you're going to be managing this board as well. And on this board, you're going to have misfortune, and the misfortune will slowly go up as you play through each chapter or each era, and I'll explain how that might affect you in just a minute. And you have this discontent tracker, and this is going to affect how content Millie, which is a baby when you start, but in this case a little toddler, how discontent they are. And depending on what era you're in, there will be different ways to reduce that depending on how discontent she is. It might be give her some food, it might be play with her, it might be change her diaper if she's still a baby, and so on and so on. As you're playing through each era, which is 3 chapters in each era, you're going to track how much misfortune you have collected. And as you move from one era to the next, and Millie gets a little bit bigger, there will be 2 different types of Millie you might get. So you might wind up with a goody-goody two-shoes teenager, or you might end up with a rebellious teenager, depending on how high your misfortune total's been as you play through the game. Now, that's pretty much how this game works. Again, it's a ton of story that you have that's all controlled through the app. And as you play through, you'll be making choices. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I haven't really talked about yet. For example, and again, there's some minor spoilers here if you're looking very close. This was my end of Era 1 journal. As you go through here, these are all these different keywords that I picked up. You can see I did pretty well in my first era. I only had 2 misfortune. And there's all these story cards and bond cards. And you're going to be able to enter in these numbers as you play. You're going to have to pay power for it, and you'll get different bonuses and learn little bits about the story as you go through. And I'll also point out that as you're going through, you do have some choices to make. You can see these bubbles that I filled in. That's the pattern that I took. And so I never went to the Frogs Crossing or went to Crossing the Bog and so on. I took a different path. And as you go through each era, it is different and more complicated as you go through. But that's pretty much how this game works. So what do I like about this game? The first thing is the story is spectacular. It is wonderful. I found myself playing way later into the evening than I should, just because I really wanted to know what was going to happen. I wanted to keep going, keep finding out what was going on, and it just wonderful, 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 wonderful. I think the way that the game balances the combat encounters and the non-combat encounters really is very, very clever, and in a way that keeps me engaged. I know there was a portion of, I don't remember if it was the end of Era 1 or part of Era 2, where I went through close to a whole chapter and just snuck around and didn't have to fight anybody. And I just great. And along with that, you're doing different things. You have to go different places and do different checks and all of these things in order to accomplish your goals. And it feels fresh every time I play through. I've yet to come up to a point where I'm like, well, here we go, doing this again. And I've completed 2 of the 3 eras now, so I feel confident saying that's the case. I also really like the look of the game. The art is just beautiful. These magical creatures that we're seeing, they're bright, they're colorful, they're fun, and I just love that that is the focus. Along with that, I love that the focus of the game is not on what is traditionally the hero. I like kind of subverting that usual trope. Yes, we have this little baby at the beginning, and then a toddler, and then the last third she's an adult or a teenager or whatever it is. But really, it's what would be the side characters. It's the Disney princess and her little animal friends, but it's the animal friends that we're focusing on. I think it's great. I love that focus being on them, and the way that the app voices all of this is really good. I mean, they have done a really, really good job of this, to where I enjoy listening to the story, and I will even stop and just sit there and just listen sometimes because it's that engaging. It's just so well done. Each of these characters feels different when you play them. They feel different when you hear them. And of course, they look completely different. So all of that I think is just wonderful. Along with that, I like the deck building and deck culling and the way you're doing all of your checks, be it combat or be it foraging or whatever it may be. And to someone that owns several of Jerry Hawthorne's games, it's this really cool progression from Mice and Mystics through Aftermath and now to Familiar Tales. And I thought Aftermath was really clever and really fun, but this takes that a step further, to where I never really feel like I've just wasted a turn or I've just screwed myself over, because I know what I'm getting into. You can always set it up, well, not always if you don't have the cards, but you can set it up to where you know that even if you roll that -2 on the die, you can't fail. And I like that. I like that you can have that certainty. You can have those times like, God, the only way I can succeed is if I roll that +2. And you can make those choices instead of having them made for you. And I really, really like that. Along with that, you're building up your decks that will help each character do different things. Again, very, very cool. The cards that are clearly meant for different characters as they come out, also really, really, really cool. The way that they help that character do other things, do special things, I just love. I don't want to spoil anything. But all around, all of that card play is just very, very cool. And on the flip side, it's very, very cool how when the bad guys are attacking, you know what they're going to do, and you're going to use those cards that you have that you've been holding on to defend yourself. But once you defend yourself, you're not getting more cards until the end of that character's next activation, so there is this lag in between, and you have to kind of decide how it is that you're going to parcel out those resources. When are you going to risk taking some damage? When are you going to just blow all your cards on defense and basically have a dead turn? Awesome, awesome stuff. It's one of the things I love about Battle for Greyport, that deck builder, is you're making those choices as you play. Just spectacular. Now, what are my quibbles with the game? Well, the first one is, I think that this is a game that's probably best with either 2 players, where you're each controlling 2 of the familiars, or solo, like I'm doing, playing all 4 of them 4-handed. Because if you're playing with more than 2, there's going to be downtime while you wait for it to come back to you. It's just the nature of the beast of you're playing all these different characters. And I specifically said 4-handing it, or if you're playing 2 players, 2-handing it, because I don't enjoy the solo mode that kind of comes in the box. It works. It absolutely works. I played through the entire first chapter using it, where you just kind of shuffle all the cards together and you just have one deck. and it's just not as satisfying. You don't feel like you're building these characters up to do different things. Now, that said, it's not hard to forehand it. I've forehanded it all over the place. In fact, I took the game with me on a business trip, and I set it up in the hotel. I'd go out in the day, do my work, into the evening, we'd work, then I'd come back, and I would sit down and just play some Familiar Tales. Just left it set up, and it's really easy to forehand it, so it's not a hard thing to do, but I think if you want the most out of the game, you gotta do that. And now, I've also said, I think maybe you have a little more downtime if you're playing with more than two. Now, the caveat to that is, like, I'm playing through Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion right now with 3 other people, and we have a great time while we do it. It's a lot of fun, and we don't mind the dead time in between turns because we're all very collaboratively working together and talking about things and just having fun. But if you're just diving in because you just want to play and get the story, probably you don't want more than 2. And the other thing that I'll say, and really, gosh, yeah, I think it's my only other quibble that I have, is it's not very hard. And it's actually pretty easy. And I'm sure that there are ways where you can kind of amp up the difficulty very easily on your own. There might even be a rule for it in the rulebook. I'm not quite sure. But it's just not that hard. And that might not be what you're looking for. I've had some familiars knocked out a couple of times, but for the most part, I'm moving through, and there's challenges. There's definitely games where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm going to do. How am I going to do this? Oh yes, I rolled a +2 or whatever. But I've never been worried that I was completely going to fail. And that may come up. It's definitely got harder at the end of Era 2 than it had been the rest of the game. But just kind of something to throw out there. But really, that's it. I think this is absolutely the best of the Jerry Hawthorne games by far. Story-wise, it's the best. Gameplay, it's the best. The look, it's the best. The minis are just awesome. I love those minis. And I had a great time painting them all. I actually have the whole set painted. All of those things I think are the best. And the rules are the best. Now, the small rule book that it comes with is fine. And some of Jerry's games in the past have had a challenging rulebook. I found the Aftermath rulebook pretty challenging, and the Mice and Mystics rulebook is challenging also. And I haven't played Stuffed Fables in between. I don't have that one. But what they did is, in the app, they have a rules index and some tutorial, and you can just always look up whatever you want. Just go click, 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 or Mike, just a little typing for me, and I can find whatever I want. It's fantastic. It fixed all of the rules issues that I've had with the game. I can easily find, so it's great. But if you are someone that's looking for a family-style adventure, now I'm playing this by myself, and I love it, but one that you can play with your kids and you can enjoy the crunchiness of the game. Even though it's not hard, there's hard decisions and hard crunchy things you're doing as you're getting new gear and making the choice of what you're going to draft, or are you going to get the story moment or whatever. But you can play with your family. This is it. I mean, this is absolutely it. If you have enjoyed any of the other Jerry Hawthorne adventure book games, you need this one because it's the best. It is the best. And you can go back and watch my Aftermath video. I liked Aftermath quite a bit. This one is just spectacular. Now, on the other hand, if you're someone who's looking for something that's really, really hard, this isn't going to be for you. If you're looking for something that's dark and gritty for the most part, not for you. Though I will say there are some moments in the story so far that I stopped. I literally sent Jerry a message on Facebook, and I said, I can't believe that just happened, because it caught me off guard. But for the most part, it is not a gritty story. It's interesting, it's exciting, but it's not dark. It's not heavy. It's not gritty. It's not crunchy. You're playing a story. So if you're looking for more than that, maybe this one isn't going to be for you. But really, that's it. I said when I got to check this out back at PAX, and I already had it on pre-order then, that I thought this was one of the top games of the convention. And boy, I've had such a good time with it this year, and I just think it's really, really wonderful. So there you have it, folks. That is Familiar Tales. As always, if I made any mistakes in the rules overview, please let me know in the comments with the timestamp so I can get that into the Klingon subtitles. If you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.